Hello, and welcome to Mystique Femininity. If you're watching this on YouTube or catching this on as a podcast, I hope you are having a delightful week. In this series or episode, I will be discussing how to practice softness in a hard world, the feminine, grace, and resilience. In our society right now, no matter who you are, no matter what gender expression you may adopt, being in this world can be very difficult and very dense. For those of us who are in a womanly body and are in a feminine path, being able to understand the need and it's a mandatory focus for you to really truly become embodied within your femininity. In most of society, especially in our modern world, there is a true disdain and disgust towards the feminine. I mentioned in a previous episode that we can see this being done with nature and how nature is being destroyed and manipulated into something that it was not meant to be. And the destruction and clearing of nature causes a ripple effect that we are feeling. I think at this time there's another hurricane coming. And that again shows us about nature and the chaoticness that can be of nature, which really truly mirrors what that is of the feminine, and how our society does not embrace nor respects it, and therefore the outcomes of such is chaos. To be soft in this modern world, especially if you're someone who works a 9 to 5 and it's not in a creative sphere. And I would also go to say that even in the creative sphere, there is a bit of pushback on being able to be in flow. To think of the feminine is to think of creativity, to think of fluidness, to think of water. You don't contain an ocean. You can't put an ocean in a cup. You may put some of it in a cup, but you can't put the complete ocean in a cup, in a vessel. And when you think of the masculine, think of something as a vessel, as a cup, as a container. As the old saying, the man buys the house where the woman makes and creates the home. And even that phrasing is very elusive, very fluid, because it is dependent on the expression of the woman. When you look at this from a, say, corporate standpoint, working in the world and just existing and navigating in the world, or even if you're in school, if you're in a university or college, you're doing a program of some sort, there is a extremeness that comes towards looking at being feminine as a negative. It is perceived as a weakness, not a strength. To be able to truly enjoy being in a feminine body, one must acknowledge and respect and honor the feminine in order for it to flourish. You cannot disrespect, debase, demean anything into anything else except for chaos. When it comes to looking at how softness works within this modern society and this modern femininity, because in this day and age, the notion of the man going out and defending his country or going and making the money, and the woman is to birth the children and take care of the home, those days are far and few, especially in the dynamics of where the masculinity and masculine is at this current time era. And therefore that has pushed the feminine in having to rapidly evolve in order to survive and to maintain, oftentimes at the neglect of her feminine, because in order for the striving, the creation, the doing, that often means a overlooking of the feminine. And often our society puts these little breadcrumbs, if you will, in our minds about what being feminine is and how it is a negative, how it's not a strength, how it's gross, And many young girls who then become women become very much hatred towards themselves internally, and therefore they experience a lot of different issues within their selves and their bodies. I look at how women, especially as women in their middle age, phase into what is called perimenopause. And this is the transition from basically being a woman who is of childbearing years into no longer being able to birth children. Often I am seeing women in a variety of different groups that are suffering an immense amount of pain, be it physical and mental and emotional. And it is a stripping away of the veneer of tranquility that women oftentimes have to put out in order for them to survive in this era. In order to take on the corporate world and to break the glass ceiling, one often has to silence and suppress their feminine urges and their feminine needs in order to ensure that they have the optics of looking, air quotes, competent, strong, and capable. To truly understand your power is to understand that you have this natural gifting of being a feminine being, and being emotionally vulnerable and having empathy is going to be a key building block for resilience in this particular area of life. To be in this hard world, emotional vulnerability and empathy are going to be your calling cards. Now, when you hear the word vulnerability, for some people, myself included, many years ago, I would be repelled by the word and the thought of vulnerability. That would make me queasy and angry. And I had to sit with myself to figure out why that term made such a visceral response. And it became very apparent of the programming from cultural to societal globally and what vulnerability stands for. And then also the term emotional. When women are thought of, they're thought of as being emotional, versus where, say, a man, if there is something that he is feeling, these are just his thoughts. But when it's a woman, it's her being irrational, she's being emotional, thus always perceived in a negative connotation. But developing your emotional vulnerability and empathy, essentially emotional intelligence, allows you to navigate as a soft being. When you are trying to release yourself from something, being very rigid will pretty much guarantee that you will not be able to move fluidly from it. Being able to be soft means you're able to bend and stretch to the environment that you're in and be able to move with it instead of working against it. Being hard structured, it's like, think of you're trying to take your hand out of your purse and it's a small hole. If you put your hand in a fist, it's going to be quite difficult in removing yourself. And if you do get yourself out, it will be damaged, be it the purse or your hand. And if you were to release your hand, release that fist, and allow yourself to be fluid, you would be able to work with said purse and work yourself out of it without harming yourself and or that lovely handbag. Empathy is something that in our society, I believe firmly, women who are not in touch with their true core self can be overused, and it can make it be in a negative way. Empathy, in my opinion, along with compassion, has to be balanced. I know I've mentioned this in a previous podcast, that to have balanced compassion, that balanced empathy, is to see yourself as others. Like, everyone is nothing more than a reflection of a part of you. And that means we're all on the same path. We're all on the same playing field. It's even. And so when you're able to look at it from a balanced view, you are able to then navigate the world in a much beautiful, vibrant, and compassionate way. When you look at potential strategies for maintaining your softness while working in this hard world, one of those key areas will be working on setting boundaries. Often when we hear the term boundaries, we think very hard, we think rigid, we have to be mean, we have to be ugly, and that's actually farthest from the truth. I look at setting boundaries as being able to communicate that how you are able to love someone while also loving yourself. You shouldn't have to set yourself on fire in order for others to be warm at the detriment of yourself. So if you're able to, one, start out by having empathy and being able to be vulnerable with yourself first, that is going to be the first thing to start. And then once you do that, you'll be able to set those boundaries, because you will be placing those boundaries not in a hard, rigid, duplicitous way of what other people are saying or doing. You can take your power and say what you are wanting to do, what works for you. So an example would be, I prefer to not have to respond to emails or text messages after a certain time. This is because I need time to wind down for the day. I need to disconnect in order for me to make sure I'm replenished for the next day. This is based off of my own self-review, self-reflection, and what my needs are. Another person may be comfortable with responding to emails or texts throughout the day and night because that works for them. But knowing what my needs are, which is based off of having empathy and understanding for myself and my needs, I then can communicate those boundaries in a way that is effective, yet honoring myself, but also honoring the world that you interact with. It is important to set boundaries because you are a feminine being, and this allows you to honor yourself. And when you honor yourself, that honor lights up within you and therefore reflects upon the world. Often women are taught, and it's either by direct teaching or absorbed messaging, that in order for you to be seen and respected, you must do what other people want you to do at all times. And this is the farthest from the truth. It often is at your detriment and is often targeted towards women in order to control and to keep you away from your power, which is your femininity. Now, embracing grace while you're navigating the hardness of this world is going to be a challenge, because it's really going to take you fostering your own growth, and it deepens your spiritual journey as a feminine being. Grace in this day and age is important. We need to be able to extend grace to ourselves first. And if you continue listening to this podcast, you will understand and hear that often. Everything that you want to push out into the world is going to first take place with you. You are your own orbit. You are your own planet. You are your own universe. And so what you start out within you and you continue to work that through you will become naturally easier for you to extend to the world, because your cup is full. If your cup is full of grace, you're able to give grace to others from a overflow of abundance, versus you giving and extending grace to people without extending it to yourself. There becomes a time in which you become very resentful, and being able to be supportive of other people and helping other people, being kind to other people. That is a kind of a freebie there for you. If you notice in your life that you have a lot of anger, resentment towards people or helping others, take a moment to step back and look at how you treat yourself. Are you respectful of you? Are you kind to you? Are you empathetic with you? Do you check in with yourself to make sure you're replenished? I know that in social media, we see images of girls who are lavished with beautiful presents and gifts and trips. And that is the way for some girls, and that may not be for all. However, you must take care of you in order for you to restore you. I look at women in this day and era, often they're not watered. They're beaten down, they're tired, they're exhausted, and it's not of a fault of their own. It is often due to the conditioning of the environment in which we currently are in within this hard modern world. It's very dense, it's very heavy, and the need to be very hard in order to survive will get you so far, but eventually a being like yourself, a feminine being, needs to be watered and nourished. You'll begin to have breaks within yourself physically, and you'll ignore them, or you'll do something to basically suppress. So you may pick up alcohol, you may pick up using a substance, you may overeat, you may undereat, you may pick up a whole host of different activities that are not nourishing to you, that are not respectful of you and your orbit, your universe. You want to ensure that if you are taken care of well, you can extend grace, you can have time to really deeply see the world from the spiritual aspects of it as it should be. Now, just to wrap this podcast up for today, when you think of your softness, you're able to do this in a variety of ways. So for your career, if you are able to honor what your talent is and focus on you, instead of trying to force yourself into an environment that does not desire you, learn to fall back and move around. Now, I don't say this lax, especially with the economy being what it is, but you are a spiritual being. And when you are in alignment with what you honor, then the universe needs to yield to that depiction of reality. When you think of your relationships, ensure that you are focused on building the relationship, the connection. Often women in this era are too busy and they're exhausted. And so the ability to have softness, to have connection is lost. You do need to have firm boundaries and firm expectations. But there's always a way in which you can communicate that without it being a fight, if you will, of the masculines. And oftentimes, if you are a woman who does lean and feels more comfortable pushing it out of a masculine way, you may find that you're going to attract or be in intimate connections with men that may not be to your fancy because of that polarity that is missing. So if you're wanting softness, work on your softness. You can work on that by investing in yourself, investing in your body, investing in your life, your home. Adorn your home with in a way that makes you happy, that makes it feel warm and inviting. For the past 2 to 3 years, I have purchased flowers basically weekly. And as much as sometimes as I think, oh, well, I can skip this week, anytime I start to think that, I become a little bit fluttery and have to place my floral order. It is something that just makes me happy, even if it's just a glance. And I always thank my flowers for beautifying my home. This also means, eating well, drinking your water, keeping yourself up and supple. Because if you're brittle, that dehydration is where it's at. And often the dehydration is not always about water, but also how we are taking care of ourselves emotionally, our inner universe. So ensuring that you're soft, you're able to get that nourishment into you. Taking after yourself, doing your bubble baths, doing your hair, doing your nails, all the things that you hear on a variety of platforms. But there's much deeper of looking inside of yourself, reflection, journaling, meditation, finding means in which that truly lighten you up and make you feel renewed, make you feel grounded, make you feel into your sensuality, into your beauty of you. These take time, these take effort, but I will assure you that even if it's exhausting in some ways, over time you will see how much you grow, how much you flourish, how much you lighten the world, because you as a feminine being hold a lot of power. You are what creates the home of the world, and in your particular endeavors with people, you are that light. And if you pour into you over time, that will become brighter, more radiant, and just gives a certain energy to all. I hope this particular podcast was helpful. Leave comments, especially if you're on YouTube. If you're hearing this there, leave some comments, thoughts, and maybe some of your ways in how you are able to practice softness in a hard world. Until next time, make sure you are loving your life in the greatest way. Bye.